Honorable CS, welcome back to the Senate plenary. You're here to respond to 5 questions, starting with question number 028 by the Senator for Kisumu County, the Honorable Professor Tom Ojenda. Senator Tom Ojenda. We will move to question number 032 by Senator Catherine Muma. Senator Catherine, you may proceed to ask your question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and karibu to Senate CS. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister is as follows. A, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status update on the adoption of the Electronic Government Procurement System, e.g. EGP Kenya, across national and county government entities, and indicate, 1, the number of entities at each level that have fully or partially adopted the EGP Kenya, as well as those that are yet to migrate to the system. 2, the total number and value of contracts processed through EGP Kenya since its rollout. And 3, the number of entities that have fully complied with the legal requirement to publish contracts and other procurement-related information. B, how much has the government saved so far by transitioning to EGP Kenya, and has there been quantifiable improvement in the efficiency of procurement processes since the transition? C, what steps has the government taken to address the factors undermining the success of EGP Kenya, among them the limited capacity and resistance among procurement officers, as well as the lack of adequate information, communication and technology infrastructure, and internet connectivity, particularly in the rural areas? D, what measures has the ministry put in place to mitigate against service delivery interruption during the transition period, particularly in health facilities, schools, and other entities offering critical services? E, what measures has the ministry put in place to guarantee that the system attains the intended objectives, particularly in enhancing transparency, accountability, value for money, and access to procurement opportunities for entities owned by the youth, women, and persons with disabilities? Thank you.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I want to thank you again and thank the Senate for inviting me once again to come to the Senate and answer to several questions. I will start by addressing question number 032, question that was raised by Senator Catherine Muma on the adoption of the Electronic Government Procurement System, EGP Kenya, across national and county government entities. And there are a number of other questions that are tied to that, but I will not again reread the questions because they have been read by the honorable member who has raised the question. So, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the National Treasury officially launched the Electronic Government Procurement System on April 7th, 2025, and directed that all public procuring entities should conduct procurement processes through EGP system effective from 1st July 2025. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, Article 227 of the Constitution requires a system of procurement that is fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. And in compliance with this article of the Constitution, Parliament, in fact, indeed enacted the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015 with its attendant regulations in 2020. Mr. Speaker, EGP is a system that automates procurement processes from bid submission, tender opening to the tender award. And the system minimizes human interaction, which is the main objective of this system, which traditionally has been a major source of corruption, favoritism, and solicitation of facilitation fees. So, Mr. Speaker, the system, if I may just quickly describe it, is built on the open contracting data standard, which enables the publication of procurement data for public scrutiny and therefore strengthening accountability. Mr. Speaker, members, oversight bodies, suppliers, and the public can monitor the status of tenders from submission to award. The implementation and use of the EGP system will therefore result in reduced cost of goods, works, and services, increased transparency in procurement processes and practices, improved efficiency in procurement by minimizing the procurement cycle time, and maximizing value for money, fostering accountability and transparency, and of course, improving confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity of transactions between procuring entities and suppliers. It will streamline procurement processes across the government through standardization of processes and practices. So, to address the first question that was asked, the number of entities at each level that have fully or partially adopted EGP system, as well as those that are yet to migrate to the system. As of May 2026, 1,543 number of public procuring entities had been registered and onboarded to EGP system. 679 in number of them have published their consolidated annual procurement plans in the EGP system. Now, the total number and value of contracts processed through EGP Kenya since its rollout, Mr. Speaker, has provided for in the EGP portal, which is indicated, a total of 9,772 in number of tenders have been published and 2,604 in number contracts published in the EGP, and the value of this contract is about 9 billion. But I want to just note that given that we are closing the financial year, we have seen a lot or an increased use of this platform, and as we speak, not less than 12 billion have been processed. And every day, I've been informed now, we are closing not less than 30 tenders per day. So noting that procurement is a process, it is expected that those numbers will significantly change, as I've said, at the close of the financial year. So now we have seen increased use of this platform. The number of entities that have fully complied with the legal requirement to publish contracts and other procurement-related information, Mr. Speaker, a total of 2,604 procuring entities have published their contracts in the EGP. How much has the government saved so far by transitioning to EGP Kenya, and has there been an improvement in the efficiency of procurement processes since the transition? There is no verified figure for total savings realized from the EGP rollout yet, as the system is in the initial phase of takeoff. The numbers in most public sources remain projections or anticipated savings, not confirmed by independent audits. However, there are several qualitative and structural improvements reported so far in terms of reduced procurement times, cycle time, greater transparency, tighter integration with financial tax systems, and built-in audit trails. C, I was required to elaborate on what steps has the government taken to address the factors undermining the success of EGP Kenya, among them the limited capacity and resistance among procurement officers, as well as the lack of adequate information, communication and technology infrastructure, and internet connectivity, particularly in the rural areas. Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury has deployed trainers of trainers, that is TOTs, to guide procurement officers across national and county governments. Over 2,000 procurement officers have already undergone hands-on training, and a further 40,554 PFM officers drawn from national and county governments have undergone virtual training via webinars. A help desk, that is Technical Support Center, has been set up to assist users navigating the system at the Kenya Institute of Supplies Management Towers along Gong Road in Nairobi. The National Treasury has partnered also with the Kenya School of Government to deliver countrywide training for PFM officers and other stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, equally, there are weekly registration and training webinars for suppliers, contractors, and other stakeholders who require support. The National Treasury has also signed an MOU with the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry to train suppliers in all counties in the Republic, and the trainings are ongoing. Manuals and user guides have also been uploaded on the EGP portal to support onboarding, and physical support points have been set up in all the Huduma centers across the country where potential suppliers and contractors can get in-person help with registration. So, Mr. Speaker, the EGP system is being integrated with other systems such as IFMIS, KRA iTax, Business Registration Service, and population registries. This enhances authenticity for users and embeds EGP in broader government digital infrastructure. Number D, what measures has the ministry put in place to mitigate against service delivery interruption during the transition period, particularly in health facilities, schools, and other entities offering critical services? Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury did issue a public notice ahead of the rollout, informing all suppliers, contractors, and consultants about the EGP launch, with clear instructions to register and use the system. In that notice, the National Treasury emphasized that only procurements processed through EGP will be sanctioned and paid for going forward, which signaled a firm push to have entities comply rather than revert to the manual systems. To support suppliers, procuring entities, and other stakeholders, the National Treasury set up help desk support, weekly webinars, user manuals, and in-person assistance at all Huduma centers for onboarding to the platform. Number E, which is the last question, was what measures has the ministry put in place to guarantee that the system attains the intended objectives, particularly in enhancing transparency, value for money, and access to procurement opportunities for entities owned by the youth, women, and persons living with a disability? Mr. Speaker, the Kenyan government, primarily through the National Treasury and the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, has put in place several measures to guarantee transparency, value for money, and access to procurement opportunities for entities owned by youth, women, and persons living with a disability. The National Treasury has implemented e-tendering system through EGP system that provides a secure and transparent platform for tenders. The system facilitates online preparation, submission, and approval of procurement plans, as well as publication of approved plans and awarded tenders, allowing for public scrutiny. The EGP system has accordingly enhanced transparency and accountability because all the procurement processes are now public and thus easier to undertake procurement audit trails. Mr. Speaker, I call upon this Honorable House to support this critical PFM reform, which upon maturity is expected to give value for money and secure savings of up to 85 billion Kenya shillings. But Mr. Speaker, before I finally conclude, allow me just to mention two things. Number one is that in terms of this house being a house that protects devolution, I wanted just to state how counties are performing. County level summary, when county entities are grouped by their parent county, 20 distinct counties have at least one active contract on the EGP system as we speak today. And I think the number has even gone up. But the leading county in terms of ranking is Kisumu County, with 467 contracts which are worth 1.39 billion are already in the system. Number two is actually Siaya County, and interestingly, all of them, the two are from Nyanza region. 163 number of contracts worth 851. Number 3 is actually Muranga. Number 4 is Baringo, Uasin Gishu, Vihiga number 6, Busia number 7, Nandi number 8, Bomet number 9, Samburu number 10, Migori number 11, Homa Bay, my home county, is number 12, Trans Nzoia number 13, Lamu 14, Elgeyo Marakwet 15, Kakamega is coming 16, Tharaka Nithi 17, West Pokot 18, and of course Machakos and Kajiado 19 with 1 each. I think there is a bit of a mistake in the number of West Pokot should also be 1, not 12. Now, all these together, those are the only counties out of 47 which at the time of preparing this report in May had at least contracts on the system. The rest, which are not here, don't have any contract in the system. I want also to state that now the stability of the system has been guaranteed. In the month of March, we have at least a champion in every state-owned enterprise. And each county has 2 champions assigned to them. And each state department has been assigned a TOT. And I spoke about the partnership that we have with the National Chamber of Commerce to help support the suppliers and contractors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I end my submission.
Senator Muma, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yes, I do, Chair. Honorable CS, my follow-up question follows your response to B, where you don't have verified figures on how much government has saved, and also your answer to E in terms of what you have put in place. Has the National Treasury considered putting in place an impact evaluation mechanism so that the objectives you set out to, as you come up with different systems, can actually be evaluated and the impacts of what you're doing are verifiable through an independent mechanism? Have you considered such a thing?
Senator Kathuri, Honorable CS, note those questions, and thereafter you will respond to them.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question, Mr. Speaker, because question number B, which is how the government entities have been able to get this system. Mr. Speaker, the CS, during his budget speech, he indicated that from this July, there will be no procurement without NGP system. Mr. Speaker, getting to the figures that he has and those who have complied, Mr. Speaker, you know, like counties have failed to absorb the budget, development budget, because of this NGP. It is a good idea, a wonderful idea. But then the implementation, I think, was really it was brought in a very hurried situation, Mr. Speaker. If the performance is not even 30% so far, how do we expect to utilize the development budget in the year 2026-2027, noting that the CS has already indicated there will be no procurement without using the NGP system? Thank you.
Senator Osochi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I read the question by Senator Moma and I listen to the response by the Cabinet Secretary, what comes to my mind is there seems to be a problem on the matter of project management, especially for IT-related projects. And my question goes to the CS, who was the implementing agency for this project? Was it the ministry or was the ICT authority? Because previously it used to be ICT authority that used to manage all the ICT projects across government. So maybe you can clarify on that. Secondly,
no, Honorable Senator, you are entitled to only one question. Senator
okay.
Boni. Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the CS for the ongoing automation of financial transactions as evidenced by eGPS and eCitizen. Hearing you, you want to make it more efficient and less corrupt, which is a good thing. But my question is this: government services are a right. So, in eCitizen, you have put a convenience fee. I pay for the right, And then you ask me to add you 50 shillings. Are you therefore saying that the official rate of corruption in this government is 50 shillings per transaction? And if it is, how much money has been collected as convenience fee, and who pockets this money? If the government is the one that receives the money, Mr. Speaker, the minister should give us evidence of the banking of the 50 shilling convenience fee. It runs in billions, and we are afraid it's gone into trillions.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is very specific. I have listened to the minister's, or rather the CS's response. But Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that there's a requirement to use this EGP system to procure everything in government, there is the issue of essential services that if they face any glitch of systemic or otherwise compliance as EGP has been, then it causes a lot of problems in the counties. A case, for example, Mr. Speaker, all the governors who appear before us in CPIC, when you ask the reason why they have not procured drugs in hospitals, they say it's because this system is not working. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is there a deliberate effort to make sure that this system is not stalling the issue of essential services in our counties? Among them, drugs, billing for water services in the counties, and most importantly, sometimes the procurement that goes with services that are affecting the employees in the county. What is the exception you have put in place for essential services in the counties? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, again for allowing me to address further supplementary questions by honorable senators. On the question by Honorable Catherine Muma, whether we have an impact evaluation mechanism, yes, we do. And I will tell you that the moment we close the financial year, we are going to do an assessment of how much we have been able to, in terms of approximation. It may not be exact, because again, these are more qualitative. But in the system, there is standardization of even pricing. That was one of those items in this system that really made the system a big improvement, that we have a way of looking at the average pricing so that you don't come with outrageous prices for commodities. Now the speaker. The speaker asked me before he became the speaker of the session that from July no county will be allowed to prepare to procure outside the EGP, and looking at the numbers, they don't look good. I think in the first year there was an attempt to frustrate the system, and many procuring entities, not even just at the county level alone, even at the national level, and including sometimes even at the National Treasury. I have been not very kind to some of my officers whom I thought were frustrating this system. And there was a thinking that probably this will just go away and that it will not be implemented. But as we progressed, they realized that we meant business. And I will tell you now, the acceptability of this system has increased a lot. That is why you can see now many and many procuring entities onboarding into the system. And we have communicated very clearly that beginning 1st July, there will be no excuse, because they used to talk about capacity. We have built the capacity. About the system now has been stabilized. So there is no excuse. The suppliers, the contractors now understand the system. And we have partnered with the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and industry to support and train the suppliers and contractors. Now, let me give you an example. I have talked about Kisumu. If Kisumu can onboard about 40% in terms of contracts onto EGP, 40%, what justification would other counties have not to onboard? Procurement or tender award amounting to 1.4 billion shillings. Kisumu County has already onboarded as at May. So what excuse would other counties have? Because these counties are the same. But if you talk about maybe far remote counties, then you pick out Samburu. Samburu is one of the remote counties we know in this country, and it is ranking number 10 with a number of contracts onboarded already with values of close to 50 million shillings. So, in short, there is no excuse. And from July 1st, Mr. Speaker, I want to persuade this Senate that there should be no excuse in not using EGP. Honorable Senator Osotsi asked me about whether there is a problem of project management. I don't think so. I don't think there is any problem with the project management. As any other project, and I'm sure Honorable Senator Osotsi has done project management, I have equally done project management. In the initial stages, or the formative stages of every project, there are challenges. Whether a project whether preparation was done to what level, there will be some challenges. How you deal with those challenges is what sets apart a good project management from a bad one or a badly implemented one. And so far, looking at the response, what is happening across the country, I can confidently say that the project management of this project is above average. Which is the implementing agency? National Treasury. And this one is not even a discretion. It is provided in law. Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, Section 7, mandates the National Treasury to be the one responsible for managing this system of procurement. Senator Boni, my friend Boni, a very good question, but unfortunately, it is not the matter that I'm dealing with today. And Honorable Speaker, if you allow me, I think I can deal with this matter if it is raised substantively on e-citizen and where the money goes and how much you have been receiving and the reasons for paying for these convenience fees. And by the way, there was a time I appeared before this House and I had attempted to address it, but I can address it again substantially, because I think it's also something that has been enjoying some public debate. A lot of information distorted anyway, but it is my duty and responsibility to be accountable on behalf of the government of Kenya to the people's representatives, the Senate. So I would gladly come and address this question. On the question by Senator Eddie Okech on essential services, I will tell you that the response that counties are giving you are excuses. Excuses in the sense that there is no essential service, whether at the national government level or at the county level, that has been frustrated in terms of procurement because of this system. And by the way, there is no reason why you cannot use this platform for even essential services. But we have given exemptions where a procuring entity has hit or met some headwinds and the services are essential. So it cannot be true that someone can come and tell the Senate authoritatively that they have not been able to procure because of the platform. All the challenges that procuring entities meet, we try to address them. And if we can't, for whatever reason, we have given exemptions. So I don't think that is correct, that there is any procuring entity that has been frustrated in terms of procurement because they cannot use this platform. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to end there because those are the supplementary questions that were raised. Thank you.
Very well, Honorable CS. Honorable Senators, what is your issue, Senator Bonner? I can't see you on my platform.
Yes, I'm pressing here, but I thought it was reflecting.
You know, you are one
this.
of the, you are acting like the same officers who are not accepting NGP. Because my NGP, I should read your name in my system.
I have pressed intervention. I thought it was showing there, but thanks for the...
Yes, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has stepped down my question.
Is it on your question? Supplementary question? Yes. What is the issue?
He has stepped down my supplementary question and promised that he's going to address it at an appropriate time. I was not asking out of ignorance. I thought there was very close relationship between EGPS and e-citizen. I don't want to argue. May I plead with the chair that I don't lose my opportunity to ask a supplementary question. You allow me to do it since the minister is here. I had two, but he has stepped down.
No, you can't ask two supplementary questions.
The one I asked, he has said he will answer another day.
That is what was your supplementary question.
Yes.
The secretariat have really recorded for the CS to respond, either through communication to the clerk or you come back to respond to that. So let us give other senators an opportunity to ask their supplementary questions. Since yours is a weighty matter that needs a lot of attention, so just get satisfied. So I can see Senator Modigi, Senator Seki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Just a very short and brief question to the Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of EGP, the use of this system in the counties, Honorable CS, it is true that it is it's becoming a system that is the county are getting difficulties to use it, particularly on the remote counties where most of the people are illiterate. And in this manner, I want to ask CS if this system is biased to those who are illiterate, who are not able to read, even to open the system, go through the internet and all that. And I think I'm talking on behalf of the Mama Mboga, Mama Shuka, who is down there and who also who has an interest to do business to counties and even to government. What is the mechanism that these people are also being, that they are going? Is your ministry working out to make sure that these people are trained to get awareness on how to use the system, and how has your ministry done that to make sure that this system is available to all? Thank you.
Senator Fatuma Nduru.
Thank you, Waziri Karibu. And you are really doing a good job in Treasury. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out, because there's a lot happening in the counties, where counties are actually taking overdrafts, loans, without actually approval from Treasury. And counties are losing a lot of money. For example, in my county, we have 3 months members of staff have not even gotten their salary. And the issues raised by the county government is that they have not been given budget allocation, which is not true. Penalties are there, and those penalties are borne by the county government. It's really a very serious matter that needs control. Engaging internationally with international companies as county governments. The law is very clear. Counties cannot engage international companies or countries outside Kenya without going Treasury. But these things are happening in our counties. And I think you really need to look into that. I thank you.
So, what was your supplementary question? You know, you are taking advantage of this session to give you a speech on Isiolo. Before you answer those and proceed to the next question, Honorable CS, Senator Ososi, can you pay attention because you are the one who under a problem? What was the issue that you raised on your supplementary question? You said you did not get the correct answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CS answered my question, but I'm not satisfied with the answer because I had indicated that when I read through the question and I listen to the CS, there seems to be a serious problem with the project management, especially for IT projects. And I said that previously, during the Grand Coalition government, they established the ICT authority, which was to coordinate project management for ICT across government, especially the e-government process. But now it looks like that is no longer the case, that each ministry is doing its own ICT project. And that could be the source of the problem. And I just wanted him to clarify on that. And further to that, if each ministry is doing its own project, then what is the work of ICT authority? It's a moribund department. So maybe my good friend CS can explain further on that, because we have had many projects in government which has had transitional issues.
I think
you saw.
Your issue is very clear, Senator, so you'll be able to answer that. So, Waziri, can you kindly answer the two questions, and then we make progress?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the first question, or the first additional supplementary question, came from Senator Seki, Senator for Kajiado, who actually asked me about the use of the system in counties and says us about the people who are illiterate. We train all suppliers and all contractors regardless of their academic understanding and qualifications. But I would tell Senator Seki that the manual system is worse for those who are illiterate. If you have participated in the procurement system in this country, and you see the kind of bulky documents that have been in use for tendering processes, the BQs and all those bulky documents which sometimes are carried in cartons. If you are illiterate, you can't fill them. So this system may also not be very friendly to people who are illiterate, but I am sure those who are illiterate would use people who at least can understand the system, the same way they were using other people to complete, or if I may say in Kiswahili, jaza for them, those bulky documents. So it is both. Whether if you are illiterate, you'll have challenge even whether it is manual or this system. But those who have difficulty in using the system for whatever reason in terms of understanding of IT, that is why we have the trainers doing the training. And we are doing even weekly webinars. Now, on Senator Fatuma, you asked me, although I don't want to run away from this question, even though it is a little bit not in addressing the question before us, but you asked about counties taking overdrafts without authority from the National Treasury. I think this is something we are trying to limit, so that counties don't have to really take loans from banks, because those financial institutions are very expensive. One. Two, there is no budget line. If you look at the budget lines of most of these counties, if not all, and this house, you interact, you have an opportunity to engage with the budgets for counties. There is no line item for those overdraft charges in terms of interest. But again, they go ahead and take. Whether we delay in disbursement, we have been really trying to disburse funds timeously. With the exception, yes, I know this month, we haven't disbursed the month of May and June. But we are working around the clock to make sure that next week, early next week, we will disburse the month of May. And we will try from the Treasury to make sure that we don't close the year with any funding to the counties, the same way we did with the 24-25 financial year. And again, I'm sure counties will appreciate that previously it used to be worse. And you can see nowadays we don't have many press conferences, Mr. Speaker, from the Council of Governors addressing the issue of delay in exchequer releases. In terms of signing international contracts, there is no entity in this country, no entity, whether it is national or county, if it is a public entity, which can enter into any contract in the Republic of Kenya without the approval, if there is financial element to it, without the National Treasury and the Attorney General. So if there is any county which is working outside that space, then they should be warned that what they are doing is criminal. On ICT Authority, we are working very closely with ICT Authority in implementation of IT projects. And Senator Osotsi, much as sometimes people exaggerate, I must say, because I've been around this grand coalition government, I was there, I was an assistant minister, and Kibaki regime. The truth of the matter is that in terms of ICT and IT, this government has done better than any other government before. In terms of onboarding services, in terms of use of IT systems, and you can see we have implemented something that has been the talk ever since, which we even had to put in the Constitution. And then finally we enacted a legal framework for it. That is the e-procurement. We have implemented, I saw some, I don't want to call them what I wanted to call them, but I saw some politician out there saying we will implement Treasury single account. We have already implemented Treasury single account with benefits to this country that if I had time, another time, I would expound on. And many others. Integrated human resource system has just been implemented. And I can go on and on. In terms of IT, onboarding of IT, we have done excellent. And we will continue even to do better. Thank you.
Very well, let's go now to the next question. We'll do question number 050.
Mr. Speaker,
050 is by nominated Senator Aminda Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bwana Waziri, welcome to the Senate. I have about 4 questions for question 050. One, Bwana Waziri, could you provide a status report on the implementation of Kenya Vision 2030 Development Blueprint and outline the factors that have contributed to delayed achievement of targets in certain sectors? B, what corrective actions is the government taking to accelerate the delivery of targets in the underperforming sectors and ensure that the remaining period to 2030 yields measurable and equitable development outcomes in line with the blueprint? C, has the government commenced the formulation of a post-2030 national development framework? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary disclose the status of the process and indicate when and how Parliament will be involved? D, could the Cabinet Secretary also state the policy and institutional interventions that the government is considering to strengthen long-term national planning, monitoring and evaluation, fiscal alignment, and accountability in the implementation of national development plans? Thank you. That is, should I go to 051 or should I stop there first? Bwana Speaker.
Are they deleted? Are they deleted according to you?
No, they are two different ones.
Okay, let him answer that one.
Thank
first. 050. Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a long response, but I'll try to move through it quickly, maybe summarizing. Mr. Speaker was requested or asked to respond to implementation of the Kenya Vision 2030 development blueprint and outline the factors that have contributed to the delayed achievement of targets in certain sectors. Status report. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Vision 2030 was conceptualized as the country's long-term development blueprint aimed at transforming Kenya into a newly industrializing, middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens, anchored on economic, social, and political pillars and supported by critical enablers and macroeconomic foundations. However, progress has been uneven with persistent challenges in achieving inclusive growth, deepening structural transformation, and strengthening governance systems. Mr. Speaker, under the economic pillar, it was designed to achieve sustained economic growth of 10% per annum through the transformation of key sectors, which include agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, trade, financial services, business processing, outsourcing, the blue economy, and extractives. Its vision was to position Kenya as a globally competitive and prosperous economy. So significant gains have actually been made or recorded across these sectors. In agriculture, for example, interventions such as the fertilizer subsidy program, which has supported over 5 million farmers, and the expansion of irrigation schemes, including Galana Kulalu and Mwea, have enhanced productivity and reduced dependence on rain-fed agriculture. This is reflected in the increase in land under rice paddy irrigation from 9,626 hectares in 2007 to over 48,000 hectares in 2025, while rice production rose from 32,000 metric tons to 303,000 tons, that is almost 10 times, over the same period. The sector's contribution to GDP has increased from 16.3% in 2008 to 23% in 2025, underscoring its continued strategic importance. Agricultural value addition also expanded significantly, with agricultural value added rising from 491 billion to 4 trillion, while textile yarn exports increased from 551 tons to over 2,000 tons, demonstrating the growth or growing strength of agro-processing and manufacturing linkages. Under tourism, flagship projects focused on diversification beyond traditional beach and bush products through the development of resort cities and promotion of conference, cultural, and ecotourism. Following the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, Kenya successfully diversified tourism beyond traditional wildlife and coastal products into conference tourism, ecotourism, and cultural tourism. International arrivals recovered strongly to 2.55 million visitors in 2025, surpassing the pre-pandemic peak of 2.5 million arrivals recorded in 2019. Investments in transport infrastructure, particularly the expansion of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, have strengthened Kenya's competitiveness as a leading regional tourism and aviation hub. I wish to add that the Bomas Conference is coming up just across here, which is a major achievement for this government, and that will help us in encouraging and promoting conference tourism, which has been sluggish. And Mr. Speaker, in industrialization, Kenya has made important progress through the establishment of special economic zones and industrial parks in areas such as Tatu City, Dongo Kundu, Special Economic Zone, and Naivasha, alongside the revival of value chains such as textiles through Rivertex and the development of leather industrial parks. These investments, alongside the revitalization of key value chains such as textiles through Rivertex East Africa Limited and leather processing initiatives, have attracted approximately 210 billion in investment and generated an estimated 35,000 jobs. Manufacturing contribution to GDP increased from 7.2% in 2008, peaking at 9.1%.
Sorry, Honorable CS, just a minute here. There is a point of clarification from Senator Mbua. Just a minute. Just have your seat for. I can see your gear was high to read the whole story. But let's hear the point of honor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, the Cabinet Secretary has just come from the National Assembly where he read a budget. And he was raring to go, I could see. But Mr. Speaker, if I look at that response, it's a fairly detailed, very long response, and I know there are questions down there that would elicit an interaction between the CS and members. So if the senator who has sought the question has read the response and they are satisfied with it, Mr. Speaker, I would request that, with the indulgence, we move to the next question so we can have some interaction before it is time for the CS to disappear. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You are right, because looking at the response, which is almost 15 pages, and the way it is structured, the response must be learned verbatim. Therefore, Senator Aminda Kibwana, I know you are good reader and you have gone through this response. So if you are satisfied with the response, then the CS can just paraphrase, or we conclude that, and then we proceed to the next question. Give her the mic, kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank Senator Wambua for his concern. I concur with him. In fact, I thought the CS was just going to summarize, but then if he has to go through it all, then I'll be okay with it. In fact, yes, I went through it last night, and I think I'm satisfied. In fact, I wasn't even going to bog him down with any supplementary question because I'd already gone through it. So I concur. I think I can go to the next question.
Unless if there is any other member.
No, that's why I wanted to give my colleagues space for the supplementary question.
If there is any other senator who has a supplementary question. The responses are in our gadgets, so I think we can be able to, you can access the response, and then if there is any member with a supplementary question, can ask. Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, you know this government likes long stories, but the devil is in the detail. So, CS, you have mentioned your project at Bomas, and I am sure he has had the concerns of Kenyans and environmentalists in particular about the hiving off of a section of Nairobi National Park to essentially put up a parking lot for that project he's talking about in Bomas. CS, now that you have spoken about it, can you tell the country what process was followed by this government to hive off a section of the Nairobi National Park for the Bomas project?
Senator Ososi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have managed to quickly peruse through the long response. And in the response, I haven't seen much about other plans which successful governments have come up with and their effect on the Vision 2030. For example, during Uhuru's time, there was a Big Five plan. And then now with this government, there is a phenomenon called bottom-up economic transformation. So I think the CS can enlighten us on the effect of these successful plans on the Vision 2030. How has that slowed down the implementation of Vision 2030, or how has that made Vision 2030 be successful? Because the impression that we're getting, Mr. Speaker, is that the successful government actually ignored Vision 2030 and came up with their own plans, which interfered with Vision 2030.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on issue raised by Senator Sifuna, the government likes long statements. I thought a government that is accountable must give as much information as is necessary. So as how you use that information now is subjective. It doesn't have to be standard. Those who support the government, you'll use it differently. Those who oppose the government, like Senator Sifuna, will also use it. And that is the value of democracy. And that is what I've provided. So, and I've given details until...
Avoid really interacting.
And Mr. Speaker is asking for details. I've given details until he's complaining, and then he's asking for details.
Because
so
if you go that route, I might be not able to safeguard your...
You see, also...
so maybe answer the questions the way they are asked, and then...
Yeah, so I'm just responding to his question. He's talking about details, and I'm saying I have given the details. If the details is too much, then you choose what to use. Now, on the issue of bombers and hiving off of the Nairobi National Park, there is a procedure for hiving off Nairobi National Park. If that is the procedure that you're asking, I am glad to bring it to this house. But I didn't know I would be asked on how the process of bombers was arrived at. If I was asked, I am very competent and capable of coming back here and facing the Senate and addressing that issue. And I will be glad to do it. Or even my colleague in the line ministry would still do it. On issues raised by Senator Osotsi, on the big 5 agenda and the better, I think there is a bit of a confusion between a vision and policy. The vision of this country has not changed. The vision of this country is still Vision 2030. And in that vision, it is clearly stated what needs to be achieved. One of them is economic growth of 10%. And to achieve that economic growth, it is clearly spelled out what needs to be done. Now, the policy, any government campaigning will now have to develop policy around the vision of the country. And vision is vision. You are visioning, or you want to see something happen in a period of time. Now, policy will help you move to that vision. And that is exactly what Uhuru government had their own plan. Now, in this government or administration, it is a bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which has 5 pillars, and which talks about agriculture, which talks about MSMEs, which talks about healthcare, it talks about housing, and finally, digital superhighway and creative economy. On these 5 pillars, the government is implementing a number of strategies and policies to make sure that we actualize the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that will now lead us to the Vision 2030. And I have enumerated in this my response. Under agriculture, I have talked about the fertilizer subsidy. I've talked about the revival of various sectors of the economy, including tea, how we have supported coffee. We have revived the coffee production. Edible oil is high up in our agenda as a country. We are reviving rice production. Look at what is happening in Bura now with the expansion of putting more acreage under rice production and many, many others, including the sugar sector. In MSMEs, there are a number of initiatives. I can go on and on. When you come to health, we are employing the universal health coverage. And we are also doing affordable housing under the housing pillar, something that everyone will agree is taking shape. I mean, unless you just don't want to accept. So the housing pillar has picked up as the 4th pillar. The digital superhighway and creative economy. I have again told you, if you listen to my budget speech, I talked a lot about initiatives that we are putting in place to promote and support creative economy. So in a nutshell, there is no inconsistency. There is no dropping of Vision 2030. It remains our anchor vision. We are just thinking of now that it is coming to an end. Then what is the next vision? So these others are policies to actualize it. So I think I have responded to the 2 concerns by the honorable senators.
Maybe, Honorable CS, you give a commitment when you can provide the issues raised by Sifuna. No, I've also asked I've also directed the CS or asked him to give us a timeline when you'll be providing that information on the hiving off of the forest, Ngong forest.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether that communication will come formally, but I'm ready to prepare the response, get it even from the relevant ministries. In 2 weeks, we can submit that response in writing.
I've noted 2 weeks, yes, Senator Sifuna. Is it on the same supplementary question or a different
Speaker,
matter?
You know, Speaker, we will
If
not
it is
allow...
a different matter, of course, I
No,
won't be able to
I
give
just
you
want to
that
make
leeway.
something clear, Speaker. Verbosity is not detail. If you just throw around words that don't give specific answers to specific questions, you can see he doesn't have an answer to my question.
But he said he will prepare for your question.
He has long stories about housing.
In
They
2
keep
weeks' time,
repeating
which
these
is
things in
okay.
every
That is
forum.
how we
The
conduct
CS
business.
will not get away with this. We want answers to the concerns of the public, not just stories about housing.
Senator Sifuna, you are not a stranger in this Senate. If you ask a CS a question and he has no answer that particular time, he is given time to provide.
Yes, but Speaker,
So what is
it
so
came
strange
from
with
his
the
own
CS for
response.
Treasury?
It came from the same response. I was around when Vision 2030 was prepared. I don't
So
remember.
that is why I'm saying I'm not giving
Just
you a
minute,
leeway
Honorable
again
Speaker.
to ask another supplementary question.
Just a minute, Speaker. I don't remember the hiving off of Nairobi National Park being part of Vision 2030 for these projects. So when he speaks about it, he should give us details. So I'm happy I said he'll answer in two
very well.
weeks, but let him not write me long paragraphs. Just give us
Senator
the procedure
Okech.
that was used to hive off the park. That's simple.
Is Senator okay?
No, just a minute.
Yes.
Yes. We won't get the question from the Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I have committed myself.
Yeah, you did
And-
that.
and,
so relax. No
I know Senator Sifuna could have been around when Vision 2030 was being, maybe he was in school. I was around here in the political space. So
Honorable
I have
CS.
probably a better understanding of Vision
Honorable
2030.
CS, Honorable CS, you know you give your commitment and that's the end of that commitment. You know you have been to this house, to the house, and also you are a good politician. You have been a party chairman. I know you know how to handle questions from politicians and from other leaders. But once you give your commitment, don't go to the political space. Just leave it at that. Senator Okech, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I've read the response from the CS. And Mr. Speaker, just like Senator Sifuna, maybe I was more involved when Vision 2030 was being conceived. Because, Mr. Speaker, the framework with which Vision 2030 was drawn, you remember when the first consultation was done by James Mwangi of Equity Bank, and then Mugo Kibati came in.
Question?
I'm coming to the question, Mr. Speaker.
Everybody seems to be an
Mr. Speaker,
expert
this is
in
very
Vision
important.
2030.
Mr. Speaker,
Can you kindly,
Mr. Speaker,
can you kindly ask your supplementary
Mr. Speaker,
question?
I could have landed the question. But, Mr. Speaker, this is what I'm trying to say, that the Vision 2030, the way it was crafted, was hugely dependent on all the flagship projects pegged on private partnership, private-public partnership. And Mr. Speaker, in the response of the CS, the projects that he has talked about are devoid of proper frameworks and robust engagement with the private sector. So my question is, CS, from the response I've read here, is Vision 2030 still aligned to be able to cultivate the flagship projects that were conceived based on PPP? Because the PPP has struggled to make sure that those projects are aligned. Where is the ministry at with the frameworks that are robust to engage the private sector in the investment of Vision 2030? Because, for instance, the affordable housing project is based on government investment, and all the other projects are based on government intervention. So my question is, have you reviewed and strengthened the private sector framework with the government?
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, when Senator Eddy said he was deeply involved in this conceptualization of Vision 2030, I'm tempted to refresh my knowledge of his age. But now, let me address his question. In terms of engaging or involving the private participation in Vision 2030, a number of initiatives have been carried out. One of them is the PPP. One of them is the operationalization of the PPP model. And a number of projects are being initiated through that model. And you know, we have the expressway here, we have the Rironi Mau Summit. But I will tell you, the reason why we have come up with the National Infrastructure Fund is purely to support the Vision 2030. Because we have seen the gaps that are in the PPP model, and we needed some flagship projects like the JKIA, which was the greenfield that had been talked about before during the conceptualization of Vision 2030. There's the Lamu port that was very important, the LAPSET as a component of Vision 2030, and even the railway system. So for all this to be actualized, we realized that there was need for serious intervention in terms of infrastructure projects, public infrastructure projects, hence the enactment of National Infrastructure Fund. And I'm sure you have looked at that fund, and I mean the enabling legislation for that fund. So I want to just leave it there, that Senator Eddy, you are speaking to someone who has also been interacted, who has interacted a lot with Vision 2030. But the policies that the government come up with would help support, because Vision 2030 was not just about infrastructure. There were a lot of the social pillars to it, and that has also to be spoken to. The health pillar, the housing pillar, much as it has some infrastructure element, but the housing pillar was actually a social pillar, so that people can have dignified housing to be proud of. So I would go on, and then you will start saying this is verbosity. But I will tell you, Senator Eddy, there is nothing verbose about this. It is about facts. It's about and I've just presented those facts to you. But you see, you cannot choose for the listener how to interpret your facts. It's informed by a number of things, maybe personal biases, political interests, and again, this is a political house. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
We now go to the next question. Senator Aminda Kibona, 051. Very fast, and then we come to Professor Gender questions.
My question on number 051, Mr. Speaker. Bwana Waziri, does the National Treasury maintain a tracking system on the resolution of concerns by the Auditor General regarding the application of public funds by the national government? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary provide an update on the resolution status of reported audit concerns? B, what enforcement framework exists to ensure that audit concerns are resolved promptly by the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs? C, could the Cabinet Secretary indicate whether recurrent, qualified, and adverse audit findings lead to mandatory corrective action plans, budgetary consequences, and decisive action against responsible officers, among other sanctions? And D, what reforms is the ministry considering, including lessons from jurisdictions with stronger public finance follow-through systems, to ensure that audit work translates into timely corrective action? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
CS, proceed and give your response.
Thank you. This one is not too long. So, Mr. Speaker, I will respond as follows. We know that Article 2262 of the Constitution states as follows, that the accounting officer of the national public entity is accountable to the National Assembly for its financial management. And the accounting officer of a county public entity is accountable to the County Assembly for its financial management. Now, under Section 204, 1G of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, it says that the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning may apply sanctions to a national government entity that fails to address the issues that are raised by the Auditor General to the satisfaction of the Auditor General. So the National Treasury has a parliamentary liaison officer or office with a structured mechanism to track and report back to Parliament the implementation status of resolutions adopted by the National Assembly. These are compiled in a document that we call Treasury Memorandum. This Treasury Memoranda document, the implementation status of the National Assembly resolutions on audit issues are submitted for all voted national government entities and funds. In practice, the tracking system for the resolution of concern raised by the Auditor General is as follows. After the National Assembly resolutions on national government audit reports are received, the National Treasury transmits the same to all accounting officers, instructing them to provide implementation status within a certain time frame. Then the National Treasury reviews and consolidates this information and tracks progress on implementation. The national government entities must regularly report on the status of unresolved issues, including recovery of funds, disciplinary actions, or any system improvements required. Finally, the National Treasury then transmits the implementation status through the Treasury Memorandum to the Clerk of the National Assembly. There are challenges to this process, however. One, accounting officers are accountable to the National Assembly and not the National Treasury as per Article 226 of the Constitution. Two, Section 74(2) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 states that if a Cabinet Secretary reasonably believes that an accounting officer is engaging in or has engaged in improper conduct, then the Cabinet Secretary shall take such measures as may be provided in regulations or refer the matter to the relevant office or board in terms of the statutory and other conditions of employment. So, Mr. Speaker, there are reforms that we have instituted to specify the measures in the regulations. Under Section 95 of the PFM Act, the Cabinet Secretary, if the Cabinet Secretary finds a national government entity to be in serious or persistent material breach of its obligations or financial commitments, then Cabinet Secretary shall determine the reasons for the breach and assess the national government entity's financial state. That section needs to be amended to conform to Article 225 of the Constitution that reads that the Public Finance Management Act provides for sanctions that the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, may impose on accounting officer for failure to address issues raised by the Auditor General. Then these sanctions include the stoppage of funds, which the Cabinet Secretary may impose. And, of course, I want to add that the Cabinet Secretary may withdraw the role or designation as accounting officer. Now, what enforcement framework exists to ensure that audit concerns are resolved promptly by the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies? The legal enforcement framework is set out in Article 2262 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, which holds all accounting officers accountable to the National Assembly. Section 74, 95, 204 of the Public Finance Management Act provides sanctions that the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury may impose on individual officers or public entities subject to the fulfillment of a legislation criteria. Now, I'm also asked to indicate whether recurrent qualified and adverse audit findings lead to mandatory corrective action plans, budgetary consequences, and decisive action against responsible officers. Mr. Speaker, there are several reasons for recurring qualified and adverse audit findings in the public sector. These include institutional culture, technical competence, delays in production of asset ownership documents, and internal controls. Others are delayed audit opinions, which come several years, financial years later. So the National Treasury also holds biannual training with all public sector accountants, sensitizing them on the resolution of audit issues included in the financial reporting templates as approved by the Public Sector Accounting Standards is a section on the disclosure of outstanding audit issues and their resolution. We confirm that the National Treasury has used the sanctions provided for in Article 225(3) of the Constitution and Section 204 of the Public Finance Management Act sparingly in favor of service delivery. We have applied it sparingly. We have, however, supported institutions with prosecutorial powers whenever breaches of the public finance management law have occurred. So what reforms is the ministry considering, including lessons from jurisdictions with stronger public finance follow-through systems to ensure that audit work translates into timely corrective action? Mr. Speaker, the National Treasury seeks to amend Section 74, 95, and 204 of the Public Finance Management Act to implement sanctions intended to address accountability issues. The National Treasury also seeks to amend Regulation 20 and Regulation 164 of the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations to strengthen the offices of the Accountant General and the Internal Auditor General in terms of independence and functions. Both offices suffered from a misinterpretation of Article 2262 of the Constitution. We are also modernizing integrated financial management system. Here, Mr. Speaker, we have noticed a need to re-engineer, IFMIS, and implement accrual accounting. The re-engineering reform, which is ongoing, includes integrating all ministries, departments, agencies, and counties into a single real-time reporting platform, and use data analytics and AI tools to detect fraud, duplicate payments, and procurement irregularities. 3, strengthening cybersecurity and data protection. And 4, expand digital payments and e-procurement system to reduce manual processing, as I had said earlier. 5, collect all revenues through e-citizen, which is integrated with IFMIS. And finally, implementation of Treasury single account. Again, this I had talked about before. We are also building professional capacity. This can be achieved through partnerships with universities, professional bodies such as the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya and other international professional organizations, but we are also using the Kenya School of Government. Strengthening coordination with oversight institutions. The Accountant General works very closely with Office of the Auditor General, Office of the Internal Auditor General, Office of the Controller of Budget, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Directorate of Criminal Investigation, and finally, Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee. In terms of strengthening and enforcement of compliance, many audit findings recur because corrective actions are not being implemented. Possible PFM reforms include requiring ministries and counties to submit action plans on audit findings to the Accountant General. Number 2, introducing sanctions for persistent non-compliance with accounting standards. Number 3, linking budget allocations to compliance with financial reporting requirements. And finally, establishing stronger follow-up mechanisms on audit recommendations. Strengthening the Office of the Auditor General of Kenya has also been picked as an important necessity. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just conclude by pointing out that in my budget speech and in my circular that I issued, we are strengthening the Office of the Internal Auditor General, which has been undermined for quite some time now. We are giving it strength so that that office can discharge its mandate of ensuring that compliance is guaranteed in government. I want to end there, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Amida Kibwana, any supplementary question or questions?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm satisfied with the answers, with the response. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question stems from financial accountability for especially county governments in relation to exchequer releases from the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, in his own words, I have heard the CS say that there are delays in releases to county governments. In fact, if I got him right, they expect to disburse some funds next week. That's towards the end of June to county governments. The question that I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, is when the Treasury releases funds to counties towards the end of June, the end of a financial year, to finance activities of a financial year that is coming to an end in 4 days, that automatically, Mr. Speaker, leads to an audit query for county governments. How is the Treasury formulating its exchequer releases to counties to ensure that even as they retain the right to hold public institutions to account on matters finances, they have done their part to ensure that those public offices, especially counties, get their exchequer releases in time? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okech.
Mr. Speaker, the question by Senator Amida Kibwana is a very critical one, and I think that we might miss something here, because in most cases the audited reports that are concerning national government are reviewed by National Assembly, and therefore it's difficult to peg to some specific issues that I wanted to follow up on this, because now this question has come to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, apart from the general answers, or rather responses that the minister has given us here, the Auditor General, as time without number, brought the issue of unsupported or missing documentation in a number of irregular expenses in the national government, and directly linked that also to unauthorized bank accounts and cash management. I wanted the CS to be specific to that question, where the auditor has raised a number of issues on the unauthorized accounts that sometimes the Auditor General calls them secret accounts. And the reason why I'm asking this to connect with the devotion family, Mr. Speaker, is because if you look at the special purpose accounts that are in the Treasury, in the National Treasury, for instance, the Collection Fund and other monies that come to our counties, Mr. Speaker, some of our counties, and Migori County to be particular, is notorious of running more than 200 commercial accounts to run business of government. So how has the CS been able to put in place a mechanism to deal with those specific issues of unauthorized accounts or duplicative accounts that are multiple accounts in running government at national level, and in the intersection or the nexus between them and our counties, Mr. Speaker? Because Migori County is one of those counties that is running over 200 commercial accounts to run government business. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Waziri, we have had conversations with you in the County Public Accounts Committee, and the question is related to what Senator Wambua has raised here. Your office is the one that originates the schedule for disbursement, and it comes to this house. I think yesterday I saw communication from the ministry, and every single year, every single financial year, we sit here and debate and pass a disbursement schedule. Waziri, is there any need for us to continue passing that law, since your ministry has never complied with the disbursement schedule that we pass here? I want to have his honest opinion on whether that piece of legislation is of any use. And Honorable Speaker, we are concerned as a devolution family, because when we look at the national government entities side, I just saw a report the other day from Margaret Nyakango, who I think is control of budget, saying that, for instance, State House spent already 12 billion in the 9 months of this particular financial year. How is it possible that national government entities are able to access money, yet the devolution family is always having to wait, and the Treasury never follows the disbursement schedule? I thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On financial accountability, and Senator Wambua has talked about exchequer releases coming late. That is a leading of funds causing audit queries. I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, that yes, indeed it is true. First, it should be understood that exchequer releases can only happen when we have resources to release. You cannot release exchequer when you don't have it. Now, how do you fund the budget? You fund budget from different sources. One is the taxes, the ordinary taxes and other income that we call non-tax revenue. That is what we call the revenue or domestic revenue. And then you also finance the budget through borrowing. And here I talk about external borrowing and domestic borrowing. Let me start with borrowing. Sometimes external borrowing takes time. Like, for example, in this financial year, we had factored in borrowing from the World Bank through DPO. It's likely to come towards the last week of this financial year. We are likely to get it that time, because at least our request has been submitted to the board finally, because a lot of processes have to be followed. And the board, once it hits the board, it will be, I know the board will approve, but it will be approved a few days too. So that funding will have to support some operations and activities. Secondly, even domestic borrowing, sometimes we have to be sluggish. But most critical is revenue performance. If revenue has not performed, Mr. Speaker, where would the government get money to disburse? But even with those challenges, you'll agree with me that this government has probably outperformed any other government before. I say so with pride, because last financial year, we closed the financial year without any outstanding exchequer releases to the counties, even though the last disbursement was done on the 29th of June. But again, the counties do not wait for the exchequer to initiate transactions. So you'll find by the time the financial year comes to a close, they have already procured. And when they get the money, then they do the payment. So it is the payment that is awaiting the funds. And also, the salary for June will be paid immediately they get exchequer. So usually there is no inordinate delay. And that is why I'm saying, if you have been keen in following, there has been reduced complaints from the county governments in terms of delay in exchequer releases and many others. And by the way, even national government, there's a delay in release of funds. As we speak today, I have a number of MDAs which have requisitions with the exchequer. One of them is Interior, which wants to be supported, and we will also support them the same way we will be supporting counties. We usually give counties priority, by the way. It may not be known, but I know from where I sit that anytime we are making cash disbursements, every week that I get exchequer request approval, I always ask how far we are with the release to counties. So there is no deliberate effort or attempt to try to starve counties of funds. It would not be in my interest. I have never supported that route at all, because I'm schooled from a political persuasion that believes in devolution, and that is the ODM party. Now, a question by Senator Eddie Okech on yes, Treasury memoranda goes to the National Assembly, but it becomes public document, so even Senate can interact with it. But again, it is the National Assembly that has the responsibility over it. In terms of missing documents and unsupported documents, I have chaired the Public Accounts Committee, and I have also been a member of Public Accounts Committee for 5 years, and I've been a member of Public Investment Committee for 5 years, and I have been in the Budget Committee, which used to deal a lot with implementation of budget, and we were able to see some of these things. So missing documents, there are a number of reasons. Sometimes the mistake, a lot of times, the mistake is on the accounting entity, where the staff in the finance department are generally unconcerned, don't care much about audit, and that is coming to an end. Actually, it is reducing, because now there are sanctions that are being applied to those accounting or to those officers. But also, there could be some challenges, because you find when these officers, and I'm sure, Senator Eddie, you have been a member of, I don't know whether you have been a member of the Public Accounts Committee in the Senate, but you find when the government officers appear before the accountability committees, then all of a sudden the documents are there. So either it is because of the accounting officers just being negligent, or you also find that the auditor who was auditing actually was given these documents, but the supervisor overruled any additional information. So the documents are there, but they were not factored in the final audit report. We haven't encountered those. And I think something needs to be done to streamline that. But you can see consistently audit queries are coming, audit queries are thinning by the day. In fact, most government units now are getting an unqualified audit report, what they like calling clean. But I say there's nothing clean in accounting. It's only that they are unqualified audit reports. On unauthorized bank accounts, yes, I will agree with you. But I think the problem here is we probably need to amend the law, because the law as it is today allows CEC members in charge of county treasuries to open commercial bank accounts. It doesn't state how many. I think we need to look into that space. But right now what we are doing at the National Treasury is to implement the Treasury single account also at the counties. We have seen the impact that the Treasury single account has had at the national government level. We want to replicate the same at the county level so that we can manage our resources better. And that is not only going to solve the problem of counties having multiple bank accounts, but it will also help in solving the problem of cherry-picking invoices, the Treasury single account. With the Treasury single account now, if you apply to pay X, you will pay X, and you cannot divert those funds. And Senator Eddie, I know you'll agree with me on this, that many counties, once you give them the approval, even the controller of budget has approved payment of a particular supplier or contractor or a service, the funds are diverted and used elsewhere. That must be brought to an end through the Treasury single account. And I hope the Senate will also help us. And Parliament should help us also, because Parliament should also embrace this Treasury single account, even through the Parliamentary Service Commission. I say that because even us at the National Treasury, that is now what we have embraced. So in terms of the value of schedules of disbursement, I just want to give again an assurance to Senator Sifuna that it is not in vain to have this schedule, disbursement schedule. But again, these are projections. These are plans. And the plans can only be actualized when resources are realized. By the way, the entire budget is actually a plan. You can meet the plan.
Yes, there is an intervention from Senator Okech. What is your intervention, Senator Okech?
Mr. Speaker, you know, we are asking these questions in context of the mother question, which the mother question is the question asked by Senator Amida, where there have been adverse audit queries that have been put as such by the Auditor General. My question on the documentation is this: where there has been adverse mention where documents are missing, the National Treasury is subject to Section 62 of the Public Audit Act to take action where the CS is saying that these documents have been found to either be missing or either have been put to the Auditor General late beyond the required timelines. What action has he taken where those documents have been missing and the Auditor General has put it as such? Because the Public Audit Act under Section 62 has got clear penalties that he should be able to take. Has he taken those actions according to what the law requires?
Very well, Senator. CS, I think Eddie just wanted clarification on his answer. If you could please address.
I think, Mr. Speaker, in all fairness, I have answered that question. If you look at Treasury Memorandum, we always explain actions that have been taken on each and every query, audit query. It's not just even about missing documents. Any issue that has been raised. And a lot of disciplinary actions have taken place. By the way, I would maybe tell Senator Eddie, I've chaired Public Accounts Committee, and we have cleared many of these audit queries at that space. That's why it is important that you allow the National Treasury to go through this process, because it's the primary oversighting body in terms of audit queries. Then once they do their report, then it means that now that is the final report, and the Treasury has to make sure that all the recommendations that are taken have been implemented. Unless there is a specific issue that you are asking whether we have dealt with in terms of discipline or anything, we have taken a number of disciplinary actions on the staff, some through HR and others. So I think I just finished by addressing the concern or the issue that was raised by Senator.
Very well.
For Nairobi.
Senator Sifuna, I want to advise senators, let the CS finish all his supplementary questions, to answer all his supplementary questions, then we can have intervention after that, if there's clarification or anything of that. So proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
I think, Mr. Speaker, I'm done with the question, unless... no, the sifuna question I'd already addressed, unless the... Yes.
Very well, then we'll take some intervention. I think Sifuna has a clarification. Proceed, Sifuna. Senator Sifuna.
So, Speaker, I think the frustration we have had as a family of devolution, and you can hear even the frustration of the public there, that we have serious problems in the counties, but we just seem to be talking and there's no action. What the Constitution speaks about under Article 225, and we have had this conversation again when the CS has appeared before our County Public Accounts Committee, is that you have the powers as a Cabinet Secretary for Treasury to stop funds going to counties where there is persistent material breaches. Persistent material breaches. We are not talking about small issues like failure to produce documents and the others. And I remember having this conversation with the CS in the committee, and we said for the family of devolution, there are counties that are notorious. Every single time they are getting adverse reports on their financials. What we need for the family of devolution from you, CS, we just want, in fact, we had agreed with you that we do just 10 counties, or even just one. If you just stopped money going to these counties that are persistent material breaches, the rest will follow. I think that is the expectation we have from him as a Senate.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Sifuna. We rarely agree nowadays, but although we used to agree a lot a few months back. So today I want to agree with you that actually that Article 225 was not just put there in vain. But remember, Senator Sifuna, we have discussed this and we have said, let me get a recommendation from the Senate to stop any funds. Because again, you see, as National Treasury, I don't also want to appear in the face of it like a rogue Cabinet Secretary. You know, when you stop funds to a county, it's a major decision. And it has political implications, it has social implications, it has economic implications. So it's not something that I would just do, even if there are material breaches. I would expect the Senate, through the committee where Senator Sifuna, I believe you still sit in the committee chaired by Senator Kajwang. If I get recommendations, even on one county or two, then we will deal with it based on the provisions of the law. I am not afraid to deal with it because it is the resources of the people of Kenya that we are protecting. So I agree. Again, I want to repeat, I agree with Senator for Nairobi. We rarely do nowadays, but this is one of those rare occasions.
Very well. Senator Wambua, what is your intervention?
It's a good thing to hear that the CS is agreeing with Senator Sifuna. But no CS beyond just agreeing with Senator Sifuna. There's a fact that we seem to be running away from. Mr. Speaker, the CS Treasury is perhaps the only CS in the cabinet who has executive powers to manage economic and fiscal policies, of course with parliamentary oversight. The question that I asked about exchequer releases and related to the disbursement schedules that Senator Sifuna talked about, I was expecting a response that provides a way forward. Not a response that says we have improved. Because improve what? What's the improvement? I expect to hear that before we hold the county government of Kitui to account for mismanaging their finances, those finances were made available to them in good time to make financial decisions, to roll out projects, and now you have messed it. The CS, I just said as I conclude, I said that he needs a name. He just needs a letter, communication from the Senate to stop disbursements to a single county as a lesson to others that are misbehaving. Now, Speaker, if my memory serves me right, just a few months ago, Meru was on the table of the Treasury. There was a move against Meru to stop disbursements. And I'm not saying you should, because when you stop disbursements, what it means is that you're punishing the people of that county on account of misdeeds of one individual called a governor. But that matter came before the Treasury. What decision was taken? They said, no, we cannot touch this. So, Speaker, let's not just respond to questions by ticking boxes. Let's give responses, especially from the CS Treasury, with executive power, responses that provide a way forward for devolution and for this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, indeed, I want to agree with Senator Wambua that CS National Treasury has some executive powers. And I thank the people of Kenya for making me that cabinet secretary now, and the president. But again, the power is with the people. Actually, the absolute power is with the people, not even executive, the cabinet secretary. So as you exercise that power that you have, you must exercise it with caution. And you must understand that it has implications. And that is what I'm trying to do, so that later on, I am not accused as one of those cabinet secretaries who sat at the National Treasury and became rogue. Now, regarding, I think we should not mix these two issues. There is the issue of exchequer releases, which is a substantive issue and is a critical one, and the issue of mismanagement of resources at the county. In fact, if money has not been received by counties, it cannot be mismanaged, because they don't have money to mismanage anyway. So we are talking about counties which receive money and they mismanage the money or the funds that they receive. These are the counties that we are saying we need to deal with. And there should be some resolution somehow, somewhere. And yes, we did with Meru. Meru, there was a persistent breach, not just by the county executive, but even by the county assembly, which committed to provide resources to settle a debt that was already creating a diplomatic issue between this country and another country. So I took the action that we did, and that triggered some response. Because before I even took that action, Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, we wrote to the county and there were no response. The moment we took that action, there was quick and immediate response. And so we will deal with any other county which becomes rogue, including Homa Bay County, where I come from, if they decide to mismanage resources that belong to the people, and there is evidence that there are material breaches, persistent, without change, and it is reported to me, and we look at the law, and the law supports the cause of withholding funds, I will do it. And by the way, that power, even though Senator Wambua calls it executive, it is still subjected to the Senate scrutiny and consideration, because the power belongs to the people, and the people have their representatives. They have their mouthpiece. The people of Migori has Eddie Okech to speak for them in this space. I don't have that power. In fact, people have not delegated that power to me. It used to be delegated to me somehow about 2 years ago. Nowadays, I don't have that delegated power anymore. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we have to proceed and go to the next question, question number 28, by Senator Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel. If I could guide you, Professor, ask your two questions, and then the Cabinet Secretary will reply to both.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have two questions, question number 28 and question number 29. Question number 28, addressed to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning. Part A, could the Cabinet Secretary outline the fiscal and other policy interventions by the government to address the slow growth in agriculture, in agriculture, construction and services sector, and its ripple effect on employment levels and county-level fiscal performance, amongst others. Part B, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the safeguards in place to ensure that the government's fiscal consolidation program does not undermine the state's obligation under Article 43 of the Constitution, which guarantees specific economic and social rights to every person? Question number 29, Part A. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide information on Kenya's current stock of domestic and external debt and disclose the debt to GDP ratio? Part B. What measures are in place to ensure that funds raised through borrowing are utilized effectively and translate into tangible development outcomes across the country? Part C. Could the National Treasury consider developing a publicly accessible tracker that links each debt facility to its corresponding development outcomes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. At least, Mr. Speaker, these two questions I have tried to condense them into 5 pages, so I will move quickly through them. Mr. Speaker, the first question is about intervention that the government is taking to address the slowed growth across various sectors of the economy. I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that in our 2026-27 economic outlook, we are preparing, or we prepared our budgets, which have been shaped by heightened global uncertainty following the outbreak of conflict in the Middle East in late February 2026. But in addition to this, we are just recovering from drought, and we are still dealing with the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. These conflicts have disrupted global commodity markets and weakened investor confidence. We have seen from February the investment in the Nairobi Securities Exchange going down. So the gains that we have realized before are being reversed from strong, are being reversed. But even though the global outlook remains fragile, with risks tilted to the downside, particularly from potential escalation of the conflict, I hope the recent indications will continue that the war is likely to end, and disruptions of critical energy transit routes, such as the Strait of Hormuz. Consequently, the global growth has been projected downwards to 3.1% in 2026, from 3.2%, from 3.4% on average. But Kenya's economy still continues to demonstrate resilience despite facing these elevated external risks. So in 2025, even though our economy grew at a slower pace compared to 2024, that is 4.6% compared with 4.7% the previous year, it's cooled a bit. All the sectors registered positive growth. I wanted to mention that. All the sectors registered positive growth. Unlike 2024, when we had a number of sectors which registered negative growth, like construction sector, mining and mining sector, all the sectors in 2025 registered positive growth. Some at a slower rate, of course. Worst it was agriculture, because in the final quarter of the year, agriculture slowed drastically because of the drought that began in September. So the growth outlook of 2026 continued to be affected by these external risks, which are transmitted through higher global oil prices that rose from an average of $63 per barrel to $103 per barrel, thereby increasing inflation and again putting pressure on our foreign exchange, although we are very lucky because we had taken steps to have enough forex reserve, which has cushioned the shilling. We have not seen a depreciation of the shilling as it would have happened. Against this backdrop, we have revised our economic outlook downwards to 5% from 5.3% that had been earlier indicated. So in terms of steps that we are taking to support the growth outlook, to be able to make sure that all the sectors grow, the government has sustained a strong reform agenda, which is aimed at enhancing stability, promoting recovery, and safeguarding livelihoods. We are guided still by the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, where we are doing agricultural transformation and inclusive growth, micro, small, and medium enterprises, housing and settlement, universal healthcare, and digital superhighway and creative economy. I have summarized my response to this question, Mr. Speaker, because I just didn't want to bring controversy here. But I understand this question Senator Ojenda raised before I gave my budget speech. If you look at my budget speech, which is now a public document, there is detailed approach on how to revive almost every sector of the economy. So I didn't want to again reproduce that speech on this, in response to this question. On the issue of debts, I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that the current debt stock of domestic and external debt and debt to GDP ratio of as at 2026 February is as follows. The stock of public and publicly guaranteed debt stood at about 12.842 trillion, which is equivalent to 69% of GDP as at the end of February 2026. The public debt comprises a mix of domestic debt is 7 trillion and external debt is 5.779 trillion. What measures are we putting in place to ensure that funds raised through borrowing are utilized effectively and translate into tangible development outcomes across the country? Mr. Speaker, the government committed to efficient use of all funds obtained through public borrowing. In this regard, the National Treasury has implemented several measures to ensure that expenditures from borrowed funds contribute to meaningful development nationwide. One is the enabling legal framework, that is Article 201B of the Constitution, and I don't want to read it again. Additionally, Section 15.2 of the Public Finance Management Act of Cap 412A of 2012 mandates the national government borrowing to be solely used for financing development expenditure. The government remains committed to complying with these legal provisions. Then we have robust PFM systems, the IFMIS system. This system ensures that funds, including borrowed resources, are used as appropriated by the National Assembly and for the designated purposes. Then we have program-based budgeting. Now we are moving to zero-based budgeting. This is the first year that we have started implementing zero-based budgeting. On the development of a publicly accessible tracker that links each debt facility to its corresponding development outcomes, the National Treasury is developing the Development Partners Management Information System, and this, I also spoke to it in my budget speech, which is a one-stop digital platform designed to enhance transparency, coordination, and accountability in the management of external resources. The system will track each debt facility and grant, linking it to the specific development projects and their corresponding outcomes across sectors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary, and thank you for summarizing your answer in a very effective way. Honorable Senators, I'll be taking, Senator Ojenda, sorry, do you have any supplementary question?
Chair, given the fact that the CS has indicated that he has a full menu of the responses and the guidelines in the budget speech, I think I will pay a visit to the CS so that I can get the full text summarized as it deals with other issues. Thank you.
Professor, I am sure you are aware that it's probably online and you can access it without visiting the Cabinet Secretary.
I will save him time because he's an expert and my former party leader.
Very well. Honorable Senators, I'll be taking supplementary questions. May I remind the Senators who are going to ask the question to stick to the primary question raised. Don't go out of topic. And because of time also, keep your questions short and precise so that the Cabinet Secretary can have time to reply. Senator Okech.
Chair, thank you. You know, the CS has spoken about very serious numbers here, Chair. And there are two numbers that have drawn my attention, which now lead to my question. The first number is 7 trillion of public debt in the domestic market, and then the issue of the 69% debt to GDP ratio, which just shows a very aggressive, public debt servicing. Yet, Bwana CS, you have not mentioned that you have been facing serious stagnation in revenue collection. So my question is this, Bwana CS. How are you going to balance your lack of meeting your revenue collection with this aggressive public debt servicing to be able to protect domestic businesses that are going to crowd out with that 7 trillion number? Because in your presentation, in the budget in National Assembly, you indicated a deficit of about 1.1 trillion. And you're going to go strongly on domestic borrowing. How are you going to help this farmer from Migori in the agricultural sector who cannot be able to borrow from domestic market to be able to put cages in the lake? These domestic businesses that you're crowding out, what is the strategy that you're going to have in this financial year to make sure that they can be able to also get credit from the private sector? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Again, Waziri, the problem that I have with some of these responses is that they actually don't answer the question that has been asked by the Senator. Speaker, I want to take you to the response to question number, just a minute, question number 28 by Professor Ojenda. And the response at page 5, for instance, when the CS is addressing the question of manufacturing. As you know, I was in Thika just this weekend, and growing up, we knew Thika to be an industrial town. You will see in the response there the CS saying that to revitalize manufacturing, the government is implementing a strategy aimed at lowering the cost of production. And if you go to bullet number 5 there, he talks about improved access to affordable energy and infrastructure for industrial enterprises. Now, Speaker, go to the very next paragraph, paragraph 13, where now we are talking about affordable energy. And the CS says the government has prioritized stabilization. Prioritizing stabilization cannot be what lowers the cost of energy, Honorable Speaker. If you look across the continent of Africa, Kenya has one of the highest rates of cost in terms of the amount it takes for you to buy 1 kilowatt hour. We have one of the highest in the region. We are doing upwards of 33 shillings per kilowatt hour. Compared to our neighbors, Ethiopia is actually doing less than a shilling per kilowatt hour. Tanzania is doing better, 22. Tanzania is doing 12, Uganda 23 shillings, Rwanda is doing 27 shillings. So when you talk about lowering the cost of energy, which is a key ingredient in lowering the cost of production and encouraging manufacturing, our priority cannot be stabilization. And I remember, because I'm a member of the Energy Committee, we fought when we were being told that there was a PPP for Adani to stabilize electricity supply, and they wanted to start in Nairobi. Yet we have over 13 counties that don't even have access to the grid. So Waziri, in terms of specific measures that you are taking to lower the cost of production, and specifically the cost of electricity to match the region, what is your government doing?
Senator Onyonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And CS John Mbadi, I'm happy this is the first time I've actually been in this house when you've come here ever since the President appointed you. So I wanted to congratulate you for your job. The question I wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, is that he has raised the issue of the debt stock ratio vis-a-vis the GDP. As the CS is aware, I think the President has announced that the Kenyan government is now going to build an airport costing $2.5 billion US. And I wanted just the CS to either come to the House and tell us, is he willing to give us the data, the information, and the agreements which have been signed, how much in real value this airport is going to cost, who are the beneficiaries of this airport construction, and what are the details? I believe that this House, as the Senate, is entitled to receive that information so that we can tell our Kenyan people, because we don't want another Adani to be what we are fighting about in our republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a quick one on the response to question number 29, part C. CS, allow me to say I'm happy to hear that you are developing a mechanism to be able to link debt to development outcomes. The question that I am asking, Mr. Speaker, is if that mechanism does not exist today, with the trillions of shillings that we are borrowing almost on a monthly basis, how is Treasury able to measure the impact of the money borrowed so far, if, in the words of the CS, a mechanism is now being developed for future use? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at least the CS has finally appeared before this Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mine is a quick one. Waziri, through the Speaker, of these 12.84 trillion Kenya shillings, I have seen you have indicated domestic debt will be is 7.06 trillion Kenya shillings. External debt is 5.79 trillion shillings. Mr. Waziri, what is the total debt that the President Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed between 2013 and 2022? So that we don't lump under President William Ruto that there is imagination that President William Ruto has borrowed 12.8 trillion. So how much was borrowed by President Uhuru Kenyatta's government from 2013 to 2022? And what is the impact that was borrowed in terms that can be attached to projects, including SGR, among others? Waziri, can you shed light on that? I thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a serious question. Why is Wambua
Thank
laughing?
you, Senator Cherargei. Senator Abbas.
Thank you.
Order, senators. Cherargei, take your seat. Take your seat,
Order.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is actually a concern that from response of the Waziri, some of the interventions actually outlined is agriculture and forestry and fishing. But of course, a larger economy that is actually been driven by the livestock sector, where 10 million people are surviving on, has not been mentioned. So what is the position that why is it that the focus is only agriculture, also the agriculture remains the backbone? And then you see provision of subsidies of fertilizers, seeds, expansion of rehabilitation of irrigation, promotion of climate resilience, support of agro-processing, nothing on livestock. What is the position?
Thank you, Senator. Cabinet Secretary, you may respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think Senator Jenda has left, but I would not have any problem having a cup of tea with him in my office just to maybe discuss into more details my budget speech, and I'll be able to break it down. But then, on issues that are raised by Eddie, Senator Eddie, through the Speaker, our revenue performance has been underperforming. Revenue collection has been underperforming. And every year we are reporting shortfall in revenue collection. As a matter of fact, there was a time this country was collecting 18% of its GDP as revenue. Today, we are collecting just well over 14.5%, around 14.5% of GDP as ordinary revenue. And that is even below the two. We have a feeling we can collect up to 20 or 22% of GDP. However, there are a number of reasons. One of them is the inefficiency and of the systems that are deployed by Kenya Revenue Authority, which we are working on, and we have allocated quite a bit of resources, 17 billion, in the supplementary budget that was passed by National Assembly, supplementary budget number 1, to be able to revamp and re-engineer their systems. A lot of reforms are taking place, and we are already seeing some reported progress in terms of personal income tax. But also, it must be understood that a lot of businesses are becoming more and more informal, and collecting taxes from the informal sector is not easy. And a lot of businesses are going digital, and again, collecting taxes in that space is not easy. But we are trying to keep pace with that. So that is creating a bit of a strain on our fiscals, and but we are still working very hard to manage. In terms of crowding out private sector, we are being very careful not to crowd out private sector. Again, I want to also point out that our capital market is fairly developed. I think that is one thing that has not been appreciated. Kenya has one of the most developed financial sector and capital sector. And the challenge that private sector has been facing in terms of accessing credit is not entirely on availability of funds. It is informed by a number of reasons. And we have seen, in fact, before this war in the Middle East, the private sector had picked up in terms of credit uptake from the banks. There was a time last year, there was a negative growth of 2.7%. It had picked up to well over 6%. In fact, the latest was 9.3%, if I can recollect. Growth in private sector uptake. And that clearly you could see, even in the economy. Much as people have been talking about the demand, the purchasing power is coming down. The truth is, before this war in the Middle East, the PMI, the Purchasers Managers Index, which measures the ability of demand in the economy and people's purchasing power and how we are buying goods, was rising steadily. And it was not us reporting, but by independent evaluators. So, again, we were hit. But again, I want to just say that we are being careful not to crowd out private sector. But again, external borrowing has also its risks. Look at what happened in 2024. Because of the depreciation of the shilling, we added to our debt stock almost 1 trillion shillings without taking even a single penny as a loan. And those are the things that we want to also try to avoid. On issue that has been raised by Senator Sifuna, I don't want to go into other details, but just to focus on the issue of cost of energy. What we have said here is that the government has prioritized stabilization of electricity supply. Before you go to the cost, the first thing is to guarantee supply, because if there is no supply, the cost will definitely be high. You cannot have cost coming down. The basic principle of microeconomics, the demand and supply, the equilibrium of prices, Senator Sifuna. The equilibrium of prices simply means where the supply curve and the demand curve intersect. And so when the demand rises and supply comes down, prices will automatically go up, because that intersection point will be high. But you must guarantee supply. Then the cost. How do we guarantee the cost, and what interventions has the government taken? One of the reasons why we have National Infrastructure Fund, Mr. Speaker, is because we want to implement resources towards generating more energy. Our energy requirement in this country is almost 10,000 megawatts. But we are only generating, well, slightly over 3,000, almost a third. So we therefore need to put more resources to generate more energy. It will deal with the twin issues of supply and cost at the same time, because demand will relatively remain constant. Or even if demand is going to adjust, it's going to adjust slightly. This morning, I had an engagement, a meeting with my counterpart in the energy, the Ministry of Energy, where we were discussing the nuclear power in Siaya, which is likely to generate well over 2,000 megawatts. And that is a project that we want to pursue to bring more power into the grid, because that is the only way through which we can guarantee cost of power to be low. I agree it is high, and also the supply and the reliability of the power. Because again, if you go to many parts of this country, the reliability of power is a challenge. Now, on the question of Nairobi being prioritized, and I want to again say, Mr. Speaker, Nairobi produces almost 60% of the GDP of this country. And that is not a place you can ignore. That's a place that we must invest in terms of providing energy. On Senator Onyonka, I know it has been reported that JKIA is going to cost about 2.9 billion, figures flying around. I saw 2.9 billion US dollars. The figure that I know is half of that, 1.2. And so you don't rely on figures that are flying around, and especially in some print media, some specific newspapers, because of course some newspapers for 3 years now, their headline are always consistent and predictable. So we don't worry much about those ones, because they have also a responsibility to inform or misinform Kenyans. But that, I will tell you, is not going to put any strain on our sovereign debt. And if you want the information about that, either my counterparts at the transport can provide that information, or the government, even through me, can provide that information. But this is one of the candidates for the National Infrastructure Fund. And I will tell you that there will be no sovereign debt as at now that would be put here. On Senator Wambua, what have we been using to link debt to development? Senator Wambua, I don't know whether he has left, but is here. Maybe I thought your height was, I thought you had no, let me reserve that. I couldn't see you. Maybe the problem is my height or your height, but anyway, either of the two. Now, Mr. Speaker, imagine what Senator Wambua is saying. Imagine from independence we didn't have it. Now we are implementing it. I think that is something you should praise this government for. We are doing exactly that. It has not been there. So we are doing it, because we can't continue complaining. Senator Cherargei, I want to persuade ourselves from just comparing the absolute numbers of debts.
Senator Wambua, I did guide the House that I will only take intervention once he has completed answering all the questions. Proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, so on Senator Cherargei, sorry, my brother, I wanted to persuade ourselves from comparing absolute numbers. Actually, the best way to measure debt is to look at the debt sustainability through what we call the present value of debt to GDP. That is what the capacity of debt, a country in paying, or sovereign in paying its debt. Look, if you look at the debt, the American, the US government, the debt they have, it's mind-boggling, but they are able to deal with it, because it's a bigger economy. Our debt as a country, you can't compare to another neighboring country. I don't want to mention names. It may be a diplomatic issue. But the bottom line is this. When you talk of 1.8 trillion debt when Kibaki left office, it should be understood that Kibaki left a low-income economy, where we were borrowing money under concessional terms. Kenya has graduated to a middle-income economy. You can no longer borrow under concessional terms like it used to happen during Kibaki government. Yes, President Uhuru left about 9 trillion in terms of debts. So that is in the 10 years that it worked. But you should understand that that debt, look at it in terms of the value of the shilling then. If you were to subject the debt in terms of US dollars, and you apply the exchange rate today, you may find that President Uhuru Kenyatta left debt which was not 9 trillion. It could even be 11 trillion to date because of the current exchange rate. So that is why when I see professionals trying to compare in terms of absolute numbers, I ask myself, really, did we go through the same schools or not? But I want to be very careful there and say that yes, President Uhuru left, or his administration left about 9 trillion shillings if you converted it into shillings in terms of debt, both domestic and external. And now it is 12.8 trillion. And by the way, some of these debt service costs is as a result of some expensive debts that were taken before that we are servicing today. But again, even this government, there will be a government which will come in, which will service their debt. So it is not an excuse for government to say that because another government took up debts that we cannot pay. We have to. I saw another presidential candidate talking of we should not pay debts. I wonder how we would manage a country which has defaulted in debt. You can't. I mean, it's basic knowledge. Unless you want to manage chaos. So I'm wondering whether some of us who are talking of leading this country, they are really prepared in terms of understanding the economy. But I will tell you for a fact that debt is a concern. We have dealt with one issue of debt. When I came into this office, and it was worse when President Ruto came in, the question was not even about debt, the debt stock, the debt cost. It was about debt sustainability and whether we were going to be able to pay our debts. I have repeated this severally, Mr. Speaker, that in 2021, IMF had classified Kenya among 5 other countries for default. And we have survived it. So that is the first step. Now the next step is to manage the debt. And I want to conclude by saying, let no one lie to Kenyans that we will be reducing our debt stock. What we can reduce is debt to GDP ratio, which is now at 69, but it is 66 in present value terms. We should go to 55% in present value terms. Once we go to 55% of present value terms, debt becomes sustainable. There is no country in the world which will reduce its debt stock. Let no one cheat you. Anyone who speaks that, Mr. Speaker, is ignorant of economic matters. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, Cabinet Secretary, order, Senators. Cabinet Secretary, I want to thank you for coming to respond. There is only one question by Abbas, which I'll be asking him to visit your office on the livestock issue that he raised, which has not been responded to. Thank you, and you are free to leave, Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Senators, it is now 1 p.m. Time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until later today, Wednesday 17th, June 2026 at 2:30 p.m.